Most of the time when I do one of these videos, I'm usually telling a story of how I came up with something brilliant that helped a client or some other people do some great things, and I try to make myself look all good. Decided to do something different today. I'm going to tell a story that actually started out well, then ended up badly, and you're going to see where this all goes. So many years ago, I started a new job at a hospital, and the first day I was there, I knew that there were some problems. The reason I knew there was a problem is because the vice president of finance said to me on the first day, "You have one employee that you just absolutely need to fire today." And I said, well, no, that's not going to happen, because I did that the first time I was in a position like that many, many years earlier. And I felt horrible because I never got to know the person and I didn't know if the person had any real skills or not. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to talk to her and I'm going to find out what's going on. So that's exactly what I did. I brought her into the office and I talked to her. And I told her that, I had heard a few things here and there and I wanted her side of it. I wanted to give her a chance to tell me. And basically, she was a good worker. She was very good. Her gripe was that she had been there for 4 years and there were newer people coming in, and all of the new people who were coming in were making more money than she was making. And I said, what? This is my first day. And so I went and checked the records, and indeed, there were people who were coming in making 40 to 50 cents more than her, because what had happened is my predecessor at the time had decided he wanted to restructure the payment rates for new employees, but he didn't think about the existing employees and doing anything with their rates. By the way, she wasn't the only one. It turned out that there were a lot of other employees who'd been there a good long time who either were making the same money as new people coming in or were barely making a little bit more. So I totally adjusted everything. But it was this first employee, because she had been, said that she was a malcontent and she was hard to work with and that she was always mean and nasty to everybody, and all she really wanted was to be treated fairly. So what I did is I changed the pay structure. She got paid fairly. I got a little feedback, or bite back from administration on that, but at least I got the CEO to agree with me that we needed to do something to be fair to people who'd been there longer than the new people. So that worked out well. She turned out to be a fabulous worker. Years later, she moved up into a different position working for someone else, and all was really good. And then there was one day where I was talking, in the hospital. I was presenting something, and I was talking about how we can find ways to communicate with people when there are difficult situations, and I happened to bring up her scenario. Now, she was there, and I'm telling this as a positive thing. I'm saying how great a worker she was and how she wasn't being treated fairly, and how I had, worked this whole thing out, and look where she is now, and look how everything goes, and, there you go. And you can't, always listen to what other people have to say about someone. You need to find out for yourself. That's a great leadership principle. What happened, however, is that it turned out she wasn't happy I told that story, especially with her there. It kind of embarrassed her. It never occurred to me that telling a story where she ends up looking good because she did look good would be embarrassing. But it brought up a period of her life when she was in major distress. I mean, really, she was on the verge of being fired. If I hadn't come in there, someone else would have fired her. And she saw that as more oppressive than the fact that she ended up, doing some great things later on. And it's an interesting thing to think about, because even though I haven't been in that situation in work, I've actually been in that situation in my personal life. I've mentioned how my mother's going through some things right now. And one of the oddest things is that when people come to the house, she feels compelled to tell them all these stories about me as a baby, as a little kid. Now, some of them I don't remember, obviously, although I know them all now because she's told everybody. And some of them I do remember, and her version of some of these stories is a little different. Her memory is a little different than mine. And these days, we're going to trust my memory. And it is embarrassing. And at the time, I never really thought about that. And it's an important lesson to learn for people who are in leadership positions, because every once in a while, I'm sure that there are times where we want to praise somebody, but we bring up something that was kind of traumatic to them or something that they really want to forget. It's kind of like if you're on Facebook right now. Every year there's a period of time where Facebook does this thing that they call memories, and what they do is they go back through your profile and they say, hey, here's a memory for you that you might want to share with some people from 2 or 3 years ago. And a lot of people are upset at those memories because their lives have changed. Maybe they were in a relationship with someone they're not in a relationship with anymore. Sometimes that person has passed away that they've brought up, and that causes distress. And this is just Facebook using an algorithm. It's no one that's specifically doing something on purpose. And that's just, the kind of thing that when we're leaders in a position like that or in an educational spot, that we have to realize that we have to kind of gauge what we're saying, especially if the people are there, or those people might be in some way related, whether they work for someone else or they like someone else, or even if they're family. And with a story we're telling, we may not recognize that maybe there's someone there who has a different feeling about the person that you're talking about, good or bad. Now, I'm not saying that you necessarily have to watch your speech, but it's something that you need to consider when you're going to present something like that. I know that when I gave a presentation last year at Lemoyne University here in Syracuse area, I happened to mention something that one of the people there didn't quite like. Now, truthfully, in that mode, I didn't care because I was talking about a diversity issue. She didn't necessarily like the conclusion I came to, but you know what? I was there. So it didn't matter at that point. So, you kind of have to think about how other people might react to things. And, just because you did something good might not necessarily work for everybody else. And you need to determine whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing or a necessary thing. In my particular instance, I did go to talk to her later on, and I apologized for embarrassing her, telling her I didn't realize that it had been that touchy at the time and that it was still a sore spot, especially since she'd moved on. And we were buddies after that, and everything was fine. So actually, I guess it did work out well for me. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this. Do you worry about things that you say? And when you say them, are you ready to address it in some way? Whether you're going to apologize or whether you're going to say, yeah, you know what? It is what it is, and you move on. That's my question for today. I hope you all have a wonderful week.